What's up guys, I'm Kasger, and today we're going to be looking at how we made the Face My Fears drum and bass bootleg. Let's go! Okay, so this is how the project file looks, and this is like a version without the mastering chain, so it's not going to sound as compressed, and the kicks are going to sound, maybe just the drums in general are going to sound maybe like a bit louder, because usually I tend to like do some of the kick compression actually in the mastering chain, so it might sound a bit different here. So as you can see, we kind of kept the intro mostly, like there's nothing else here. We kind of just kept the intro as is because we really liked it. And then here we start adding some little drums and stuff. What you see here is we actually chopped it up right here. So this is like two different versions. If you do like a cut like this, you can right click and click on make unique. And what it'll do is basically make another instance of the sound. And then you can route it to another mixer channel than the original one. So the first sample of the track here is like with lows and everything. I don't think we really did much to it. And then this one goes into another mixer track because we made it unique. And as you can see here, we did a pretty dramatic low cut on it because we wanted to add in our own lows for this part to make it more intense. Yeah, so what did we actually add here? Like we added a bunch of drums, we added some more strings and stuff. And then we added in our own bass line here. It sounds like this. And then we added in, kind of sounds like strings. Just to get some more harmonies going. And then we have this little thing. It's like very old school trancey, right? I think it goes through like most of the track. We have this in the background, like for the drop and everything. It sounds so good. Yeah. So some chords and some extra harmonies we added in. And then I think the most like important stuff we added for this part is actually, we added some really orchestral drums. And this is from the Kasger pack. There's lots of like really good stuff in that pack. So like these really like, and then I think we have some rolls and some claps here. And this is basically just a loop we just threw in there. And then we chopped up some drums here and added some like rolls and fills. So it sounds like, yeah, it sounds very cinematic. And then when you add it all together, it's like, oh yeah, and then we added this little like extra bonus melody, like, yeah. So it's all about like enhancing the original. Like we felt it could use like more epicness during this build up. And then of course we added a kick here, just pretty simple like build up kick, and like some hats down here as well for the build up. And then in the original track, the track kind of does like this fake drop. Let's see if I can find it. Not really a fake drop, but like a drop where the drums kick in later. Yeah, so instead of like, you get the kick, but then you don't get a snare or any drums for at this point over here. So we kind of wanted to keep that, but we also wanted to like extend it a bit more to fake people out even more. So ours is like, yeah, and also we actually removed one of the chops. We wanted to change up like the melody just a bit. Most of the chops we use, I think, for the drop, we basically cut out from this first part. This is why this track is really good to do a bootleg of. This first part here, there is no drums. Like there's a kick, but basically you have all these like vocal chops or whatever vocal synthy thingies that Skrillex did. You have all of these without drums, so it's really easy to just lift them out of there and arrange them however you want. So basically you just chop them out like this. And here you got a little boy here. It's like, yeah, you got him, and you just route him to a mixer channel, and then you cut out the lows, and then you're good to go. You can use it as you would any other synth or something. And we did that for the most part. There are some changes in the vocal chops here and there. So at some point we actually had to pick it out from parts where there is drums and stuff. But that was like mostly doable. There was some points where we actually had to cleverly cut out some snares and stuff, and I think this is actually also why we changed the melody a bit, is to avoid clashing with the snare, because the snare is really loud, and we couldn't really like layer it on top of our own snare, because that wouldn't fit with the snare pattern is very different in drum and bass than in the original track. So we basically had to cut out a lot of stuff, and you can see here that we rearranged a lot of the vocally chops bits and cut out a lot of them. And then let's see, it's on mixer channel 14. So this is the usual stuff we would add, is like compression, OTT, just a little bit, of course, always at the OTT, and then we send it to route it to like a sidechain channel. As I was saying, for this part we wanted to extend the fake out drop a bit to make it like even more, have a bigger impact. So we just took out the chops and added like our own stuff, so it sounds like this. Yeah, sub drops are always really good. I feel like I use them way too much currently. Like, they just sound good. Also from the Kasger pack, there's so much good stuff in there, and I think actually you can find all of the Kasger samples on Splice, so you don't have to buy the whole pack. What else is in here? We layered some hats on top of the chops just to give them a bit more, just to give them a little click. Yeah, and then a drum fill before the drop. And then for the actual drop, it's the same kind of process where, as you can see, we actually, yeah, the chops sound horrible by themselves. You can actually kind of hear the kick here. But when you play it with the drums, it gets sidechained out, so you don't really hear it here. Yeah, so we of course added like our own bass line in, which also sounds horrible when it's not sidechained. Yeah, way better. And yeah, we got the trance boy. I think that's basically our process. Then it's just basically like making a normal track, like everything we just made ourselves, like you normally would, apart from the actual vocally bits. So it's a lot like just making a normal track when you make a bootleg. At least it was for this one, because we didn't really like, yeah, for the intro and for the build up and stuff, but for the drop the only thing we really sampled was the chops here. And yeah, the rest is just stuff we made ourselves. Yeah, then we have this little boy here. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah, we added like a shit ton of distortion and stuff on this guy. So there's a lot of automation somewhere, I think. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, that's like just a lot of automation to keep it down. That's actually a pretty cool, like, you should really always look out for your reverbs and echoes and stuff like that. Whenever your sound is not playing, just add automation for the volume and cut that shit out, because it clutters up the mix. And most of the time you can, like, if you have this big reverb tail going, you can just turn the volume way down whenever the sound is done playing, and instead of just having the tail play out and mod up your mix, you can just turn the volume down, and it'll usually help a lot. So that's a trick I use a lot. It's just like volume automation. It's so basic, but a lot of people don't do it. So yeah, you can kind of see it here. I have some here, and I do it even more now, just on sounds, because a lot of sounds I tend to like. Well, a lot of sounds is like really distorted and over compressed now, so you gotta kind of balance that with some volume automation. So maybe it would be interesting to hear the track without the vocal chops. Just hear, like, what does it sound like without the stuff we sampled. And pretty obviously the intro is gonna just be empty because there's nothing there then. But let's just hear it from here. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds pretty good by itself. Yeah, so that's a small taste of how it sounds. Yeah, and then later in the track we threw in some vocal lines from Kingdom Hearts because we thought it would fit very well. And I'm just gonna admit it, I really didn't play Kingdom Hearts when I was a kid or anything, but MELURAN, who I collabed this bootleg with, he has played a lot of Kingdom Hearts, so I used him a lot when we made also like the video and we got these lines. He was like, yeah, we gotta add these lines in, they're so good. And I did actually go back and play the first Kingdom Hearts. I didn't complete it, but I played a lot of it. And I did buy the new Kingdom Hearts game and I've played it, so yeah, I'm in the loop now, guys, don't worry. So yeah, the lines we added in is like these lines.
I want to line the pieces up, yours and mine.
So good. Yeah, and of course, bunch of effects, bunch of compression. OTT on vocals can work surprisingly well sometimes. And then just like, yeah, reverb, echo, your usual stuff, nothing crazy going on here. So yeah, it kind of sounds like this in context.
I want to line the pieces up, yours and mine.
So for the vocal part here, when she comes in and sings again, we used the bit from the intro, of course. I don't think there is any bit in the original where there's drums on top of her vocals, really. So it's basically just this, but of course low cut, so we could add in our own bass line and stuff. And then we kind of switched up the plucky melody a little bit here. And actually a funny thing about this part is like the original Skrillex track has some really special like hi-hats that we actually liked a lot in the drop. We could have maybe like toned down the highs a bit, but we actually kept them pretty much as they are in all of these chops. And then when we got to this part where we don't use the vocal chops and we don't got those highs from the drums, the hi-hats, we actually took just the whole like original drop and we just cut like all the mids and the lows and just kept the highs there. It sounds like this. So basically it's kind of like a free top loop to layer on top of our own drums, and it just gave it like that extra crisp that it really needed. If we didn't have it there, it just sounded very empty in the highs going from the previous part of the track. So yeah, it's kind of a dirty trick, but it really worked. And then for the breakdown, we just pretty much went back. I think, yeah, we added like a sweep. Yeah, we just went straight back to the original here for the breakdown. Okay, so for the second build-up, it's pretty much the same, and the drop is similar, but we kind of decided to make it drum step, which is always the easy way out when you make a drum and bass and want to make a variation for your second drop. Just switch up the drums. Yeah, so, and we added in some like small bass steps and stuff, so it sounds like this. Yeah, and I think we put in some brass hits. I wonder if they yeah, they're sampled. So these okay. They sound so bad on their own, but they work in here. Yeah, you can always add these hits in. Brass is insane. Just works every time almost. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up what we did for this track. So I think like the main takeaway from this is if you want to make your own bootleg, just get the original track, figure out the BPM, match it to whatever BPM you want to work with, and then just go crazy. And you can always start with just taking the original drop, cutting out the lows, adding your own drums and your own bass line, and see how that sounds. And then you can kind of start to like rearrange parts and maybe grab bits and pieces from here and there and see however it fits. That's a good approach. And remember to sidechain a lot, especially if you use like the original, just sidechain. But basically the first thing that we did for this particular bootleg, and basically for any bootleg you want to do, is get a hold of the original track, of course. Yeah, so sometimes people ask what's the difference between like a remix and a bootleg? And basically for a remix you have all the little stems, which is what we call it, which is basically like all the little bits and pieces from the track. So you will have everything isolated. So maybe you'll have a vocal just playing by itself, so you can manipulate it however you want. Maybe you got like each individual drum, or like just like all the drums bounced together in one file. And like different melodies. Sometimes people will even supply like MIDI files, but I'm not sure that's so common actually. Mostly it's just like stems, so just bounced out the different tracks, so you can easier kind of like remix it basically. But when you do a bootleg, what you do instead is you take just the original raw track, and you see however you can like manipulate it into something new. And it can be quite challenging sometimes, because it really depends on the track. Sometimes there'll be like small bits and snippets you can kind of like take out. The best thing to look for if you want to make a bootleg is a track where there's parts without drums, because most of the time you want to replace the drums. So if you can find like a part that you really want to use in your drop or in your main part of the track, make sure there's a part without drums, or maybe a part where you can like easily cut out the drums. Sometimes you can even just like layer your own drums on top of other drums, but yeah, the results may vary a lot on that one. So basically what you want to do is get a hold of the original track, and then what you want to do next is figure out what BPM the track is in. And there are like certain kind of software that can analyze the BPM for you, but usually what I'll do is just play the track and then go to a website that allows you to like tap the BPM. I'll leave a link in the description for the one I usually use. But basically just search like BPM Counter on Google and you'll find it. So basically here you just tap like this. So you just tap to the beat. And do it like, I don't know, 20, 50 times, and you'll have a pretty good idea of what the BPM is of the track. So you want to jump into a point where there's actually like a beat or something. So basically this track is in 160 BPM. And the good thing about it being in 160 BPM is that it's relatively close to drum and bass tempo, which is 174. Well, that's usually the tempo I make drum and bass in. You can do whatever. Usually when you make a bootleg, you don't want to stretch it up too much or too little. You just want to like find a good spot where it kind of fits in your BPM range. And this one fits super well. Sometimes if you have a track that really doesn't fit, like let's say I got a track and it was like maybe 100 BPM or even less or something like that, you can actually kind of try to like double it, because 100 BPM or 200 BPM is basically the same as just half tempo or a double tempo. And 200 BPM is closer to 174 than 100 is. So when you do the fitting in FL Studio, I'll show you how to do it here. Basically you right click here and you do fit to tempo. And here you type in the BPM. So let's say your track was, you have like tapped it to be 100. Try to put in 200 instead and see if it works better. Maybe it doesn't, but yeah, give it a shot. But yeah, let's type in 160 and let FL Studio do its magic. Yeah, so now we got the track. It matches the tempo you've set up here. So now we got the track in 174 BPM. Next step is basically to just take and align it with the grid. Usually I'll find like the drop or like a place where I can see a drum hitting. So let's have a listen to this. Yeah, this one is pretty clear transient. So basically you just align it. If you hold down Alt on your keyboard, you can do like sometimes if you zoomed out it will kind of snap to the grid, but if you hold down Alt you can like drag it more smoothly. Pro tips here. So basically try to align it as good as you can. And got this one here. Let's just check with the drop here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Basically just go through the track and see if it actually fits, if you got the BPM right and stuff. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Mainly just look at drums, because sometimes piano and stuff can be shifted a bit. So you mainly just want to go for the drums. So yeah, that's kind of like the start. You gotta get it in and you gotta match it to your BPM. Next point is actually making the bootleg. That's gonna be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like down below. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more cool stuff. And if there's anything specific you want to see me like go through, like it could be a track or like a tutorial on anything, just let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. And be sure to check out my Discord server. We have a lot of fun in there and you should definitely come in there. There's a link in the description. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye!